consultation, I think, is really important. And I want to ask you, because I think we're very much data-driven. And when we talk about inequalities and consultation, and again, you use a term which I often use, people have been literally, researched and consulted to death. And whilst it's important to get people's voices, especially in that co-production, we have a lot of data and we have a lot of information about what we should be doing. And I can think of several recommendations, both nationally. We can think of Stephen Lawrence, for example. We can think of deaths in custody, where there are several examples of things that we should be doing. And whilst we're rising and moving forward, and we can see the shift within, certainly in our organisation, why is it important that we still do more consultation given this time?
Yeah, I think the danger is, Beresford, what you can get is, we know what people were saying a few years ago. We know what the people that come forward have said. That doesn't mean to say it's right up to date. It doesn't mean to say that newer voices don't come through.
Yeah.
And I think it's like anything. I always used to think about balance. We've got to do enough of both. But really, there's no point doing consultation unless it's turned into action, doing something about it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've got to do enough of that. At the same time, we've got to continue to listen. It's maybe find different ways to do it, to get people involved in services. So they're helping us shape and make the change as opposed to tell us what they want.
Absolutely.
So it's to work with them to really get into that delivery piece. And about the consultation is exactly what it is. It shouldn't be asking people, we're doing this, what do you think? It should be saying, look, we really don't know what to do here. We've got a few ideas, but we really value your input to get the other side. And it's difficult to get people to believe you around that. But I think we've got to do both. But it's really important we get the action side, the delivery side of this buttoned.
Yeah.
Get on. Really have the evidence say, has this worked? And not be afraid if we made a change and it doesn't work, to change. The danger is you do the change and people say, I can't change that now. It's, everyone said it's wonderful. We've got to really be constantly evidence-based and constantly get people involved as we go through. Because as much as the what, it's the how. How do we do this in a way that's different?
And here's I agree, Dave, and this is great. So is our leadership, and I guess it's a bit rhetorical, really up for this in the way that I hear you speaking around, you're passionate about that. I can hear that coming through, and you very rarely hear that from a finance director. So, it inspires me to hear you speak in this way. So are we, the sustainability of this kind of leadership, and you've been around for a while, and my cautiousness is around people like yourself who clearly are around to see that transition happen. And how do we sustain this model of working? How do we sustain that?
Okay, so 2 or 3 things there. So I've never known a body of people that's more up for it, seriously.
Brilliant.
And I wouldn't do that if I didn't believe it. Often people talk about it and then don't do, but this doesn't do that. And it's not just the exec leadership. It's not people like me. It's the entire board.
Brilliant.
You get the constant still challenge, push, etc. at the non-exec level. When we have discussion about board, it's really about how is this going to make a difference and hold us to account. And that's important to get local people in there and influencing what's going on. It's also the Council of Governors who represent both staff and our service users and speak on behalf of them and the public as well. Just all that flows through around this. Just give me the rest of the question, Beresford, because I didn't answer it all. What else did you ask?
Yeah, so it was the sustainability. How do we sustain? It's everybody's responsibility, but it's your style of leadership filtering down, giving.
Okay.
I think Rudy mentioned it as well, the culture of the organisation, because we're starting to see the head, if you like, of the organisation. We can see some of the changes and the shift. But how do we sustain that down so it comes through to the people on the ground in a sustainable way?
So,
that trust and confidence.
I think it's really critical. Yeah, it's really critically important that if the execs weren't here or some of the people weren't here, it would still carry on. It's that embedding is what makes the difference.
Yeah.
And for me, the heritage, the legacy is what we leave behind. How do we make sure the organisation changes and continues if we weren't there? That is the challenge for us. And it's really important. It's not because Rasheen says or I say or whatever. It's because it's the right thing to do. That's why the values are so important. They should drive everything we do. It's why it's important we have the priorities that translated to everybody on the ground. So every team would know what's important. They already know that. How do they fit in? How do they know what they need to do? And how do they know what good looks like? By being able to describe it in that way, for local services, local people, you can see if you're achieving it. And you've then got to give people the resources to change that as well. So you've got to really live up to this in a way that makes a difference. Sometimes it's really difficult. But the right people will do the right thing despite all that outside pressure. They'll find a way to deliver that and keep the organisation safe from all that so we can do the really good things. And the leaders in this organisation, not just at the board level, but throughout it, really want that. And we've got to make sure it feels different and it feels like that all the way down. So things like where we get difficulty in terms of staffing or recruitment or IT or whatever, that's what people see and that's what they think. We think of them. We've got to get the minimum level that, the things on the ground that people judge us by right as well, because it's all part of the same thing. There's no point having a great culture if your systems are poor, if your processes are poor, if it's difficult to be heard, if it's difficult to recruit. That's all got to be consistent as well. And as long as I'm here, and I'll be here till I retire, I'll tell you that now, I'm not going anywhere else. As long as I'm here, I'll be pushing to make that change real on the ground and to make sure it's embedded. And we hold ourselves accountable for that as well. Are we really making the difference that we want to?
Dave, I have to tell you, I'm inspired by what you say, because it looks like I'm going to be around for a while as well, because I think part of that systems change that we're talking about and culture change is about that historical memory and the legacy that feeds into where we were and how we're transitioning and how we, like you say, leave that legacy, that we can continue to see the change that is so needed for some of the most vulnerable people in our city. And Dave, thank you so much for your time today. We're coming towards the end of the program, and it's been enlightening. It's certainly been engaging. And again, thank you to our caller that called. You still have a chance if you want to make a quick comment. 0121 772 8892. Dave, you're an author. And I should have mentioned that amongst all the other. I should have mentioned that. And I've only got about 60 seconds left. But it means that I get the opportunity to invite you to come back. And I hope you take the opportunity.
Anytime, Beresford.
That's brilliant, because, again, I know the execs are committed to coming onto this space, and it's been a real help in terms of how we communicate to our local communities. So when I get you back on again, I'm going to start with the author bit, because I think
you are. You're just trying to trick me here, aren't you?
No, absolutely. Anybody that writes books about Leeds United in the way that you have several times needs to be heard, and we need to talk about that.